Coffee Pot Conversations.
Bonjour et bienvenue to Coffee Pot Conversations, my podcast about Paris, a city I visit often enough to feel confident and misunderstand thoroughly. And this podcast exists somewhere in that gap. Welcome to episode 5.8, Parks and Gardens of Paris Part 1. So my name is Paul, and this podcast will be brought to you by myself talking into my phone and a little microphone down here. So for those of you new here, welcome. For those of you existing listeners and viewers, thank you very much for staying with me. So pretty much this is the first part of a planned two-parter. This is going to be talking about some of the parks and gardens, mainly the parks, which are gardens, and then the next episode 5.9, will be more gardens than parks. It will all be explained as you stick with me and we progress through the episode. Episode 5.8, what's that all about? Well, pretty much I record in seasons of 10 episodes. So season 5 means I'm on the 5th season. I started back in 2024. I release episodes every second and fourth Tuesday of the month, January to May and July to November. And that's it. So pretty much that's the format of release, that's my schedule. What then takes place is I will release the episodes. I talk like I'm doing now, totally unscripted. Normally read off post-it notes, but I haven't got them. The reason I haven't got them is because I haven't written any. I do actually have post-it notes with me. No, I don't. I normally keep them in the bag. I didn't actually bring any with me, so I can't even take notes and make notes for later on. Anyway, so what will happen is we will have this little bit of spiel, then I'll break into the news, and from the news we then have the main coffee pot conversation, which is based around the topic of the episode, Parks and Gardens of Paris. After that I do a little conclusion just to wrap things up, and then to progress to the next season I do a what's coming up section where I say what's coming up, and that's really it. It's at the moment season 5 is about half an hour's worth of me blabbering on. The news and the main conversation are scripted, not going to lie, and that's it. So get used to me not blinking, and you should be all right. There we go. So for now, let's move straight over to Paul with the news. So yes, this is me with the news for Tuesday, April 28th, 2026, better known as episode 5.8. Parisians, I'll start again with that bit. Parisians are in the wake of a dizzying blend of high-stakes weather fraud, political shifting, and the looming silence of the most important holiday in the French calendar. Don't forget to blink for those of you watching. Authorities are currently untangling what is being called the most Parisian tech scandal in years. Police are investigating a suspected low-tech hack at Charles de Gaulle Airport, where a trader known only as XX25XX, that's lowercase x, capital X, 25 capital X, lowercase x, is accused of tampering with weather sensors. It appears the trader netted over $21,000 on a betting platform Polymarket by wagering on a specific temperature spike that local meteorologists say was physically impossible. The lead theory? Someone literally held a battery-powered hairdryer or a lighter to the sensor. Polymarket has since moved its data source to Le Bourget, presumably where the security guards are less susceptible to the hum of a hairdryer. In the halls of the Hotel de Ville, new Mayor Emmanuel Grégoire is wasting no time making himself known. Following his March victory, his administration has spent the last 2 weeks signalling a brutal squeeze on the short-term rental market. Parisians who treat their secondary apartments as mini hotels are facing new compensation rules that could cost them up to €3,000 per square metre just to stay legal. It's a bold start for the man who famously celebrated his election by riding a bicycle through the streets to prove the united left was here to stay, at least until this political term comes to an end. The city has just come off a culturally crowded weekend. On Saturday, the 14th arrondissement was awash in the Catalan tradition of Saint Jordi, where Boulevard Edgar Quinte was lined with over 40 authors and thousands of roses. Meanwhile, just outside the ring road in Moissy-Crémail, thousands gathered on Sunday to celebrate the Thai New Year Songkran at the Wat Thammapat Pagoda, which involved the ceremonial pouring of fragrant water. A much more peaceful use of liquid than the showers that hit the 13th arrondissement's new murals earlier this month. Looking toward the next few days, Parisians are preparing for the May Day shutdown. This Friday, May the 1st, the city effectively stops. You will see thousands of pop-up stalls selling Lily of the Valley, Musée, and it's the only day of the year anyone can sell flowers on the street without a permit. While the unions march at Bastille, most museums, like the Louvre, will be bolted shut, though the zoo remains open for those who prefer animals to activists. For something truly random, if you do find yourself at the Théâtre de la Renaissance on May the 5th, don't be confused. That is actually chess boxing night. Parisians will be watching contenders alternate between 3 minutes of intense chess and 3 minutes of punching each other in the face. It's a sport designed to settle the clashing of intellect and animal instinct, which, to be fair, is just a standard Tuesday in most Parisian bistros. Finally, a new Wallace fountain has been installed in the 13th arrondissement. This brightly coloured fountain, painted a deep orange, has been placed near Rue Paul Bourget and Avenue de la Porte d'Italie. Since 2011, the district City Hall has been working to draw attention to urban renewal projects by painting the new Wallace fountains located near these developments in bright colours. In the 13th arrondissement, a blue, red, pink, yellow and now an orange Wallace fountain brighten the streetscape. So that's it for the news. Now, on to our coffee pot conversation.
Coffee pot conversations.
There's something different about the green areas of Paris. There's also differences within the green areas of Paris. I guess the most famous gardens in Paris, not including Versailles, it's a 12-mile journey away, are the Tuileries and Luxembourg. I've been to both, but honestly explored neither of them. For me, the Jardin du Tuileries is the Christmas market. It's the big wheel, the Ferris wheel, the Roue de Paris. The original Roue de Paris, like most modern landmarks in Paris, was constructed for the Exposition Universelle. This was a 1900 one. At the time, it was the tallest wheel in the world, standing at an imposing height of 315 feet, 96 metres. It was finally disassembled between 1920 and 1922. Each carriage on this enormous structure had 40 passengers, and there were 40 of these, taking 20 minutes to get all the way round. These pods were later used to house families who lost their homes during the First World War. But if that original one was taken down, what about the one we see now? The one that's visible from the queues at the Louvre. Interestingly, this wasn't and isn't always there. This newer 200-foot, 60-metre high Ferris wheel was originally found on the Place de la Concorde. It was there for the Millennium celebrations, similar in idea to the London Eye, originally called the Millennium Wheel, which is twice the height but a permanent one-sided A-frame construction. The Roue de Paris, beautiful to say in French, is a transportable wheel requiring 40,000 litres of water ballast to provide a stable base. Erected in 72 hours, dismantled in 60, it needs 18 lorries to move it from location to location. It's been in Birmingham, Manchester, Amsterdam, Bangkok, Antwerp, Ghent and Cologne, plus a few others. For now, it's back for the summer fun fair and Christmas markets at the Tuileries. Yet the Tuileries is more than just fun fairs, Christmas markets and vin chaud served in keepable cups. I've mentioned these gardens a few times in previous episodes. There's only been the origins of the gardens and the expansions towards the Place de la Concorde and the Avenue des Champs-Élysées. Did you know that it's Paris' oldest public park, having been opened to the public in 1667? That's over 100 years after being commissioned by Queen Catherine de Medici. Incidentally, it's called Tuileries because before the palace was built, which was destroyed in 1871 during the Paris Commune, another episode, it was a site of a tile factory, or a Tuileries, as they say in France. The garden links the Louvre to the Place de la Concorde and is filled with sculptures by Malot, Giacometti and Rodin, an artist that I've actually heard of. Take your time to stroll through it in any season. Simply enjoy watching people going about their business. Or head over to either the Jardin du Luxembourg, an art centre that exhibits and promotes all forms of mechanical and electronic imagery, or the Musée de la Lingerie, which is somewhere that Nev and I wish to visit. It was built in record time under the request of Napoleon III in 1852, and he seems to have done a few bits during his reign. The orange trees from the Tuileries Palace were sheltered here every winter, and after the empire fell in 1870, the orangery was attached to the state domain, moving it to the Under-Secretariat of State for Fine Arts in 1921. Claude Monet's water lilies, offered and then formalised in 1922, became a feature of the Claude Monet Museum, which was inaugurated in 1927, a few months after his death. The first museum of modern French art became a national museum after Paul William's collection gave the orangery a boost, and his request for the collection to be seen by the public. Leaving museums and galleries for now, I'll move on to the Jardin du Luxembourg, as I have to cover other areas of greenery in Paris. And there were more than 420 that I could choose from. So, the Luxembourg Gardens, inspired by the Mobley Gardens in Florence, were created after Queen Marie de Medici requested them. Now don't get confused between Marie and Catherine. Catherine of Tuileries was married to King Henry II and was queen from 1547 to 1559. Marie Luxembourg was queen from 1600 until 1610 when Henry IV was assassinated. However, she stayed on as regent for another 7 years until the son Louis XIII exiled her. The two de Medicis are related as Catherine's granddaughter Christine of Lorraine married Maria's uncle Fernando I de Medici. Yep, too much, too soon. Anyways, back in 1612, Marie de Medici bought the land with the intent of having a royal estate inspired by her hometown of Florence. It housed the royalty right up until the French Revolution in 1791, saw it become a national palace. So, what's in the Jardin? Let's start with the famous Fontaine Medici, built under the instruction of Marie de Medici in 1630, and whilst France was under the reign of her son, Louis XIII. After the French Revolution, the fountain fell into disrepair, and Napoleon Bonaparte restored the fountain with the help of Jean Chagrin, the architect he hired for the Arc de Triomphe. It wasn't until Napoleon's nephew, Napoleon III, it was relocated from the palace to the palace. Horseman's redesign of Paris meant the fountain was moved stone by stone 30 metres closer to the palace. It then had a 50-metre long basin placed in front of it and had new sculptures added. We also now have the French Senate. The building isn't new, but its use is. Well, it's changed over the years. Moving from the Louvre to the Medici Palace, life was constantly surrounded by opulent decor, such as 24 Rubens paintings, now relocated to the Louvre. Politics and religion should rarely mix, and yet the Hotel de Luxembourg was offered as a place of residence to Cardinal Richelieu. Long story short, Marie de Medici was exiled to Campania in 1631. Gaston d'Orléans inherited the palace from his mother, where it was then known as the Palais d'Orléans. The first public art gallery in France opened in 1750, but was closed in 1780 by the future King Louis King Louis XVIII, who was living in Petit Luxembourg on the same grounds. Keeping up. In 1791, despite being a national palace, it was deserted for the first time in history of over 150 years. So it became the Maison Nationale de Sûreté, the national prison. Long story short, again, Robespierre ended up there, and with the Thermidorian Revolution in 1795, the palace became the home of the Director Executive. But they weren't able to maintain the required finances to the state of the 18th Premier and left. With the succession of the senators of the empire, the palace was now fully parliamentary. The constitution of the year 8, also known in the real world as 1799, instituted a conservative senate, and the palace was later to give a Maya imposing style a la Napoleon. Not surprisingly, Chagrin was involved in the design. After 15 years, Talleyrand's proposal came to fruition, and Napoleon was no longer Emperor of France. This left the door open for Louis XVIII to return. A little bit of hoo-ha later, whilst the citizen king, Louis Philippe I, was running the show, the Palais de Luxembourg was enlarged again. And in 1836, at the expense of the park, a new chamber of sessions was started, complete with a half-dome library decorated by Delacroix. History lessons to be found spread across future and certain past episodes. The Second Republic left us with Napoleon III, and once more the Palais de Luxembourg was back to having a parliamentary intent. The chamber of sessions and the rooms adjoining were eventually converted to a single gallery called the Galerie du Trône, meaning the throne gallery. The empire collapsed, members of the Paris Commune were judged and also executed here, and after a fire at the Hotel de Ville, the Prefecture of the Seine gained a tenancy. And with the end of the Third Republic, yes, I'm bound to cover the republics, with the end of the Third Republic, the Luxembourg was given to the Senate in 1879. But this is simply the palace. The gardens still hold amazing treasures to enjoy. We have the Musée de Luxembourg, the bandstand that gives various music genres an outing, and the orangery that presents exhibitions. There are a whole host of statues with historical stories attached, as well as a boating lake that all good podcast hosts and Instagram influencers mention. There were also the infamous green chairs, sporadically yet meticulously placed. And still, there were pony rides, marionette shows, tennis courts, chess tables, and generally grass areas where you're not allowed to sit. Keep an eye on the interdit signs, as they may change during the day. And don't forget, there's a Pavilion de la Fontaine if you decide you want refreshments during your stay in the 57 acres of Parisian greenery in the 6th arrondissement. My favourite jardin, well, big jardin in Paris, is the Jardin des Plantes. This is a jardin located on the left bank in the 5th, just over the Pont d'Austerlitz. Whilst the jardin itself is free to visit, there are a few bits there that require payment to enter. I'll mention these in a minute or two. Knowing me, it'll be more like 5 minutes. This jardin, originally founded in 1626, was established as a royal medicinal herb garden in 1635 and opened to the public in 1640. Truth be told, I looked at around 30 different websites and couldn't really find a concise answer. They pretty much come up with different dates and use similar language, so knowing which is based on sourced facts rather than the hermeneutics of a few interweb pages is difficult. Regardless, I did carry on researching information and added it to what I knew from personal experience. The gardens became a centre of early medicinal research and training, and a school of botany was added. Whilst it may have been a simple thought for Louis XIII, the Jardin des Plantes has since become an outstanding scientific centre in the heart of Paris. Well, that depends on your line of thought as to where the Parisian heart is, but you get the idea. In 1640, the Jardin Roue de Paris Medicinal opened to the Parisian public. Guy de la Brosse was a pioneer behind this, constantly badgering Louis XIII for a medicinal garden in Paris. And this was based on an existing Jardin des Plantes in Montpellier. La Brosse's family coincidentally moved to Paris from southern France with the Prince of Bourbon, a chap who was to be called King Henry IV of France in 1589. A whole heap of Protestant Catholic issues ensued, but in 1626 La Brosse finally got approval for the garden. However, he didn't get the financial backing at first. After asking many a minister, including Cardinal Richelieu, and writing a piece called De la nature vertu et l'utilité des plantes, on the nature, virtue and liberty of plants in 1628, he had enough money to buy the land for the garden in 1633. So for the next 7 years he worked hard to get the inauguration in place. The following year, he died. Today, included in its 69 acres of land is the Great Gallery of Evolution, stuffed animals, the Gallery of Paleontology and Comparative Anatomy, and that's animal and dinosaur bones, the greenhouses of Rancère de Jardin des Plantes, and Juan de Jussur built the first of these in 1744 to house a coffee Arabica plant gifted to Louis XIV by the Mayor of Amsterdam, and they've since been replaced along with a whole collection of plants owing to the siege of Paris in 1870 and the 2 World Wars as well. But today, all is good and thriving. We also have in the Jardin des Plantes the Galerie de Géologie et de Minéralogie and the Menagerie, the second oldest zoo in the world, missing out by 42 years. It was opened in 1794. And the 1793 municipal decree to stop exhibiting wild animals in the streets of Paris allowed the owners to be the first keepers in the Jardin des Plantes. Seigneur means carer. The remnants of the Versailles Menagerie were moved to Paris, and in total 58 animals now lived at the zoo. It was from 1798 that the larger animals arrived from outside of France. These were animals obtained by the army, as well as those often gifted and found on expeditions. Animals such as elephants, lions, camels, ostriches, bears, buffalo, and in 1827, the rafa de giraffe. In 1870, many of the animals were destroyed by Prussian bombardments or eaten to feed the Parisian population. If anybody is wondering about the tickets, it's a little weird. Each gallery is a separate ticket, but you can buy a combined ticket for them all, which lasts 380 days. It's a little pricey for a day trip, especially as a family of 4, so that's 2 run-ups and 2 over 12s. However, the library is free, and so is the oldest tree in the garden, planted by Bernard de Jussur in 1734. It's a Lebanon cedar. As an Englishman in Paris aside, it was the Jussur campus of the Sorbonne that never visited for her work back in September 2021. It's also known as the Pierre et Marie Curie campus and was built by Napoleon. Strangely, I read this fact in a book called Pancakes in Paris by Breakfast in America's founder, Craig Carlson. who has his first diner located just down the road in Roue de Paris, which I have been to. Incidentally, the oldest tree in Paris, le plus vieux arbre de Paris, is located in Square René Viviani in the 5th, just around the corner from Shakespeare and Company. The Black Locust was planted in 1601 by Jean Robin, an herbalist to King Henry IV, and this square is now named after René Viviani, who was a lawyer and politician, who became Prime Minister in 1914, whereby he signed the Order for General Mobilisation and held a position for the first 16 months of the First World War. The central part of the garden is named after Amandine Giraud, a young diver from the Paris River Brigade who unfortunately disappeared whilst on duty in the Seine on January the 5th, 2018.
Coffee Pot Conversations.
That was episode 5.8, Parks and Gardens of Paris, part 1. That's it. I'm not going to give you my call to action as to where to find me because you've watched it, you've listened possibly on Spotify or on podcast, you've listened, could be absolutely anywhere. What I do want to say is merci Luxembourg, this is génial. Apologies for accent pronunciation, but thank you Luxembourg, you are amazing. I'm still in the charts. Thank you for that. I don't know if I should say good luck for the Eurovision because I'm not sure if you're actually in it this year, but regardless, I'll do my best to be watching that. Also, I want to say a huge congrats to Vonnie, who did some French pronunciations for me. I think it was season 4. She completed the London Marathon on Sunday. She did it in 4 hours, 4 minutes and 45 seconds, which considering Vonnie has done very, very little running prior to training for this, that's absolutely outstanding. I'll see if I can get to do the Paris Marathon, which I will be doing. I say that I'm going to try and do it in 2032, which will mark 10 years since my first Paris Marathon. I've only done 2, but the third will be quite a nice little send off for me in terms of no more organised runnings, and in terms of unorganised running I haven't done much this year at all. I'm still getting me 10,000 steps on my Fitbit, boom, but that's just through walking at lunch and running up and down a rugby pitch. Yeah, we're in the French Six Nations. It confused me because I normally call it the 5 Nations. I get corrected by Rory, but yeah, it's the 6 Nations. France did play over the weekend, beating Ireland 26-7. So that's about it. Now it's time for Jasper's jingle.
Coming up on Coffee Pot Conversations,
we have episode 5.9, Parks and Gardens of Paris Part 2. We also have 5.10, The Best Bits, which will, like season 3, was it season 4? Ooh, I don't remember. One of them did the best bits, recorded in Paris, and that's how it's going to be at the time, which I'm looking forward to that. I just need to work out how I'm going to get the boys involved. I think it may be Google Meet rather than Riverside, but that is still yet to be finalised. What else is coming up? Season 6, which is going to be recorded with my trip to Paris. I'll be honest, I've still got dregs. They're not dregs, they're remnants from this season where the length of them got too much, so I did break them down and I've put them into second episodes, so last November's episodes are going to be brought forward through to season 6. However, I do have more which I will be utilising and recording, and that is about it. I've got no idea how long this has taken because each section was recorded separately, individually and independently of one another. So I'm going to say it's around about half an hour, which is what I'm aiming for now, going forwards. So that's it. So in the meantime, keep the coffee hot, the pot warm and the conversation cool. And Rory, it's over to you.
Coffee Pot Conversations.